This is my series on everyday carry essentials. Today I'm going to talk about my pocket tool of choice and some background on why I chose it. So let's dive in. I've been a multi-tool guy my whole life, ever since I was a Boy Scout carrying a chunky multi-function pocket knife tethered to the belt loop of my Scout shorts. I was fascinated that a gadget that could do so many different things could fit in your pocket. And later on I got my first Swiss Army knife and carried that for years. And then eventually an American tool came to my attention. The PST2 was the first of my many Leatherman tools, and I've carried them more than any other brand over the years. This is my first generation wave. I don't have my PST2 anymore, but this is my first generation wave, and I even gave the second generation wave to my groomsmen as groomsmen gifts in my wedding. That said, from time to time, I would tire of carrying these bulky multi-tools and try to get by with the little keychain multi-tools as they came out, like these. And sometimes I'd try to get away with just a knife. These minimalist phases came from constantly conflicting desires that I've always had. One is to have on hand the useful tools on me at all times, and on the other I wanted to have as little in my pockets as possible for comfort, and I'm sure we've all struggled with that. But this Kershaw leak is an example of several folders that I've carried over the years. I usually aimed for small enough to easily carry, but big enough to satisfy most cutting needs. Sometimes I even went more minimal with things like this tiny Boker and various utility blade holder types. And even this little tiny Kershaw bounced around in my pocket for a few years. They're small and sturdy, but they are just limited to cutting. And sure, some have another function or two, but for me, a 1 or 2 function pocket tool is just not enough utility return on my pocket carry investment. So the desire to be prepared for many different needs always brought me back to multi-tools. And the full-size multi-tools like the Free B4 and the Wave, both of which I love for what they are, they're just too big and heavy to pocket carry. And the good little keychain multi-tools like this Discontinued Squirt and the Gerber Dime and the new very good Next Tool Mini Flagship. They're all very good, but for small tasks. So after bouncing around between all of these size differences and utility differences, I realized I needed to probably make a list and prioritize what I really wanted from a pocket tool and see if I could figure out a happy medium. So I came up with a list of goals, and I realized that I just needed to prioritize what I wanted from a pocket tool. And my general goals for a tool are for it to be truly pocketable, relatively light, do what it needs to get done, have a versatile tool set, and just be easy to replace. We have to expect a tool with more utility than a knife to be a little heavier than a pocket knife, but it can't be a lot heavier or we start to leave it at home. Full-size multi-tools just aren't designed for pocket carry. And the small ones don't fulfill many of my requirements, so that's where finding a good mid-sized tool became my focus. There's also wear, tear, and loss to consider. Multi-tools can be expensive, and some may be worth the money. I think this one is. But the exception, of course, is the Leatherman Arc, which is not to me. But I prefer a tool that is relatively inexpensive and thus can be easily replaced. If I have to use it to do a job that it might damage it, or if I might lose it, or it may be lost for me, I like to know that a repair or replacement is relatively cheap and easy. And so I also made requirements. I put together a list of my goals for the tool and the functionality that I would like to have and always be prepared for. I think it helps to list out requirements. If you've seen my other videos, you see I do this. I like to keep my requirements clear, like a checklist when considering a tool for purchase or for use. to continue from earlier, mid-sized tools became the target of my search for utility and pocket carry comfort. So when Leatherman came out with the Juice S2, really the whole Juice series, promising to be the mid-sized and full-featured tool, I was very interested. And because I always need scissors, I picked up the S2 and wore it out. Then I bought another one. Unfortunately, it's not here. It lives at our lake house, but this is what it looks like. If you don't know, this is the obituary photo from the Leatherman site. The Juice S2 aligned with many of my goals and a good number of my requirements. It's a good tool with some design flaws. For example, one of my scouts effortlessly destroyed the can opener on my first one, opening a single can of baked beans. It was just too thin right here at this section here to get it done. Anyway, I carried those Juice S2s for years. The Juice S2 filled several of my needs, but missed on some and only partially fulfilled some of the others. Like, for example, there's no wood saw, no file, no awl, no prying tool. A lot of the tools were on the weaker side. So it's a good tool in a good size, but the limited tool set and flaws kept me always on the lookout for something better. And Leatherman didn't rescue me. Instead of replacing it with something better, they discontinued the line and exited mid-sized tools altogether. And so I looked at the SOG PowerPoint, I looked at the Gerbers, the Next Tools, the Roxons, the Beeberys, and others. I say Beebery because I've been to Beebery in England. I know it's a Chinese company, but I think they named it after the town. But anyway, nothing else fit what I wanted. And so then one day I was looking through my tools when I saw one of my old loves through fresh eyes. Yep, the trusty Swiss Army knife. Ever since moving to these heavier duty multi-tools, with heavier being the operative word there, and their plier-based platforms, I'd almost kind of forgotten about them. But seriously reconsidering their quality and versatility, especially in light of my requirements and my goals, they have easily won me back. So I started with my old Fieldmaster. This isn't the one. I've given several of these away, and this is a newer one, but I started with my old Fieldmaster that I already had, which mostly met my regular needs, having scissors and a wood saw, which is a baseline for me. And as I don't drink, a corkscrew seemed useless, so I opted for the Fieldmaster over the Huntsman because it has this dedicated Phillips head screwdriver. But then I heard about some clever uses of the corkscrew as a tool, and also how it could also be used to store accessories when not in use, and that moved me over to the Huntsman. The corkscrew versus Phillips is the only difference between the Fieldmaster and the Huntsman. So I carried the Huntsman for a while, but then I ran into a few situations where a good file would have been useful, and a few situations where a metal saw would have been useful. And so I was looking for a model that had those. And that's when I found Goldilocks here, the Ranger. I've been carrying this Ranger ever since. It's one layer thicker and a few grams heavier than the Fieldmaster and Huntsman, but it adds a lot of utility that's well worth it to me. So let's have a quick look at what it has and keep in mind my requirements and goals over here. Let's just get started with internal torque. It's got a flathead or slotted screwdriver if you're an old school. It's got what sort of works for a Phillips head screwdriver and a smaller slotted head screwdriver here and here. It's got, oh, sorry, I've got the magnet in there. Let's take that out for just a second. It's got, this can be used as a Phillips head screwdriver, and I'll get to this tool in a minute. And it actually works better in a lot of cases than their combination tool. On the back, it's got a smaller slotted screwdriver, flathead. And so that's internal torque. External torque, we'll talk about in a minute. Cutting, it's got two blades, the big blade, the small blade. And technically, the can opener is a cutter, for oranges and cans. And for sawing, I've got the wood saw, and I've now got the metal saw, which is the upgrade from these guys. Metal saws along this edge here, so it's a file on both sides, but the metal saw on this edge here. So it's a great combination tool. Filing and shaping, obviously, we just looked at that. Pulling and tensioning, actually let me put this down for a sec because it's got accessories in it, but I'll show you. The pulling and tensioning comes from the corkscrew and the parcel hook, both of which I find to be useful, very useful tools. So every once in a while you need to grab something and need a handle, just pull it. And this works for many different things, but I'll just show you a quick example. So let's put a quick stopper knot, a figure 8 in this. And let's say that I need to tension something with quite a bit of force. You just put the stopper knot behind there and wrap this thing through the corkscrew. And now I've got a really strong handle to pull something tight if I need to, a tarp or whatever, load in the back of a truck or car or whatever I need to do. Parcel hook can also be used for that. You just put it through and the stopper knot will keep really good management of that while you pull it with the handle of the knife. Okay, now that I put a lot of tension on that, here's the untying part. I'm sure you've seen in other videos, but you can loop this through. Just loop this through a piece, and it, where you can't get your fingernails in and get the force, this thing is a good way to get in there on, even when after a heavy load has been applied. This thing can get in there like a fid or a marlin spike and help you untie knots. So actually really useful, and it just, it's just on the knife. So it's a multi-use tool that I really appreciate. And of course that's on here, but I have accessories that I can, actually maybe this is a good time to talk about that. So there's a company called Fire Ant, and they make these little accessories here. This is a little mini ferrocerium rod for fire starting, and this is a little tinder. I think it's some kind of cotton impregnated with wax, and they've made it so that it can fit perfectly onto the corkscrew of a Swiss Army knife. And then it's got a hole down the middle, so the ferro rod can go in there too, their little tool. And you just add both of them like that, and now you've got fire starting on your Swiss Army knife. I think it's great. And so the difference you see here is that I've put heat shrink tubing on the outside to kind of keep this, because it's just wax and cotton. Over time, in and out of pockets and whatever, it starts to fray and fluff up. And I experienced that firsthand, and so I put some heat shrink tubing on it to kind of keep it together. Anyway, so I only pull, that's only for an emergency when I need to start a fire. I can take that whole thing off. Actually, I could for you right now. I could take this whole thing off, use the tool, and then just put it back on. Anyway, very useful. Okay, for boring or reaming a hole in wood or other material, you have the awl. Oops, sorry. And this blade right here on this edge of the awl is really good. You can really tear a hole in wood or whatever you need to with this awl. I mean, you can sew with this. You've probably seen some videos where people try to sew with this. It creates a bigger hole than I like in the material, the leather or whatever. So I always use needles. In fact, I keep a needle on this tool. But it's a great tool for boring and scraping. You can even use that to light the ferro rod if you really wanted to, but I always use the back of a saw. Because the Victorinox saw comes with a really sharp spine on that on the saw. So if I show you an example, I think this one's got, yeah, it does a fantastic job because it's 90 degree. So, but you could use the awl if you wanted to. Okay, scraping. I've got a couple things for that. First, I've got the, you could use the slotted screwdriver for scraping, or if you need something sharper, this Ranger, which is different from the others, has this extra tool here, and it's the chisel. So it's kind of a narrow-headed chisel, but very useful in scraping and digging. You can even, you know, chisel out, you know, the bowl of a spoon, the round part, and I mean, you just have to be a little bit careful because it's not a locking tool, but good for scraping and hollowing out if you need a little dip or trough in a wood project or whatever. Okay, scraping. Prying, probably wouldn't use this. I'd probably use the screwdriver. Retrieving, that's why I've got the magnet. Nice thing that you probably saw before is that if I get these little, I think these are 6mm magnets, it just so happens to perfectly fit into the can opener right there. The one caveat is that you have to lift the scissors to get it in. Otherwise the magnet shifts and the scissors and it won't close, but that's a small price to pay for that extra functionality. Okay, and then, you know, pinching. Of course, little tweezers for splinters or whatever, or to pick up a little thing. You know, I actually sometimes store paper clips in here and a safety pin. There's a place that I can usually, and sometimes I need to retrieve them with this, so it's kind of handy that they're right there on the tool. Anyway, toothpick on the back, everybody knows about. Some people use other accessories in there. There's actually a ferro rod that you can buy that fits in that slot, but I actually use the toothpick. The extras are the carrying, you know, with the parcel hook. You can hook this on a string and carry something, or wrap paracord around wood and carry back to camp. It actually comes in a lot more handy than people think. And I actually saw a guy on YouTube hang from this. So, and in fact, I've seen it a couple times, and so we know that it's strong enough to carry body weight, at least 150 pounds. And so it's got a lot of strength. Can opener, bottle opener, and pinning. Like I said before, instead of the pin that usually is right here, I actually keep a needle, if you can see it right there, because that's more useful to me. And I have thread in all my kits, so that's my backup needle in case I need to do some sewing to repair clothing or gear. Okay, so coming from the Huntsman, that file and saw combo is key for me. And the tip actually makes a better Phillips screwdriver in many cases than the combo tool that they feature for that purpose. So really, with one additional layer of thickness and a few grams, I get 5 more very useful tools in the Ranger. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. I've gained a lot of tools with the Ranger, but I've lost pliers and wire cutters, which are common among the multi-tools. Not all of them, but most of them. And you're right. Some Victorinox models, like some of these bigger ones, the Handyman and the Swiss Champ. There's another one, Tinker Deluxe or something else. They have these pliers, but they're really not heavy duty, and they're not meant for anything but smaller tasks. Got some gunk on there. Anyway, and if you look at these wire cutters, it's that little tiny slot down in there that you can barely see. Obviously that can't tackle anything but the smallest gauges of wire, and probably nothing more than the softer metals, like a copper speaker wire or something like that is probably what it's intended for. I wouldn't try to cut heavy duty wire with that. So they have those, but I'm not interested in kind of the small task kind of pliers. And for, you know, the need for cutting wire, I actually would just saw through it, since I have a metal saw in here. I mean, that's a way you can do it. Also, the scissors, world famous Victorinox scissors, for small gauge wires are perfectly legitimate and strong enough for that. I mean, you wouldn't want to do anything heavy duty, but for most things, the scissors would even do it. But for pliers, and if you've seen my other video, my pocket toolkit video, you'll know how I probably solve this quandary. And it is the Cobra. The 4-inch Cobra Knipex pliers. And I carry those along with my Ranger when I think that I'm going to need some pliers. And this kit contains another pair of those, and so when I bring this kit, I leave this at home. And when I don't bring this kit, and I think that I might need pliers, I bring these together. So you also might be thinking, why not then just go to a bigger tool, you know, one of these tools or whatever, if I'm going to carry 2 small ones. And the reason is weight and versatility. So this combined weight of these two, the Ranger and the Knipex Cobra, is 180 grams, which is less than all of these Leatherman tools except for the Skele-tool. And my Juice, my old Juice S2, would have been lighter than these two combined. But those tools have far less utility than the Ranger alone, let alone with the Ranger and the Cobras together. And the ergonomics and versatility of the Victorinox Ranger is really where it's at for me. I mean, the Cobra pliers just extend that functionality with a little bit of additional, you know, with little additional weight and space. But it's really about the Ranger and what a great tool it is in day-to-day use. So for me, the Victorinox Ranger, sometimes paired with the Knipex pliers, nails that EDC balance of utility, size, value, and really covering all the essentials of all my requirements and my needs, the needs that I most want to be prepared for. So let me know your thoughts, and if you think I'm missing a better solution, please let me know. Check the description for the links to all the tools that you see in this video, and check out the other videos in this Everyday Carry Essential series. I hope some of this information is useful to you, and thanks for watching.